The sun was setting over the quiet town of Greenwood, casting long shadows across the empty streets. It had been a long day for Mark, a simple mechanic who spent most of his time tinkering with engines and fixing broken-down cars. He was on his way home, a paper bag of groceries in one hand and a tired sigh on his lips, when he noticed something unusual near the edge of the woods. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, two figures huddled together under a large oak tree. But as he got closer, he realized they were unlike anyone he had ever seen. Their skin shimmered faintly, a soft iridescent hue that seemed to shift in the fading light. They were slender, with large, almond-shaped eyes that glowed faintly in the dimness. Their clothing, if it could even be called that, looked like it was made of some kind of metallic fabric, torn and dirty. Mark froze, his heart pounding. Aliens? Here? In Greenwood? He blinked, half expecting them to vanish, but they didn't. One of them looked up at him, her eyes wide and pleading. The other seemed too weak to even lift her head. "Hey," Mark said cautiously, taking a step closer. "Are you okay?" The one who had looked at him tilted her head, as if trying to understand his words. She opened her mouth, but instead of speech, a series of soft, melodic tones came out. Mark frowned. He had no idea what she was saying, but her tone was unmistakable. She was desperate. He glanced around. The street was empty, and the woods behind them were silent. If these were aliens, they clearly weren't here to invade or cause trouble. They looked scared and hungry. Mark hesitated for a moment, then set his grocery bag down. He pulled out a loaf of bread, a few apples, and a bottle of water. "Here," he said, holding them out. "It's not much, but it's something." The alien sisters exchanged a glance, then the stronger one reached out with a trembling hand. Her fingers were long and delicate, with a faint glow at the tips. She took the bread first, sniffing it curiously before breaking off a small piece and handing it to her sister. The weaker one ate it slowly, her eyes fluttering closed as if savoring the taste. Mark watched in silence, unsure of what to do. He had always been a kind man, but this was far beyond anything he had ever encountered. Still, he couldn't just leave them there. "You're safe here," he said softly, though he wasn't sure they could understand him. "I'll help you." The stronger sister looked at him again, her eyes filled with gratitude. She reached out and gently touched his hand, her skin warm and surprisingly soft. A strange sensation washed over him, a feeling of calm, of connection. It was as if she was thanking him in a way words never could. Mark nodded. "Come on," he said, gesturing toward his house. "Let's get you somewhere warm." The sisters followed him hesitantly, their movements graceful but unsteady. Mark led them to his small home on the edge of town, where he quickly cleared off the couch and brought out some blankets. He heated up a can of soup and set it on the table, watching as the sisters ate with quiet reverence. Over the next few days, Mark did his best to care for them. He learned that the stronger sister's name was Lyra, while the weaker one was called Nora. They communicated through a mix of gestures, tones, and the occasional flash of emotion that Mark could somehow feel when they touched his hand. He discovered that they had been stranded on Earth after their ship malfunctioned, crashing somewhere in the nearby forest. They had been wandering for days, trying to find help, but their unfamiliar appearance had scared off anyone they encountered, until Mark. As Nora grew stronger, the sisters began to reveal more about themselves. They came from a distant planet, one where kindness and compassion were the highest virtues. They had been traveling the stars, studying other civilizations, when disaster struck. One evening, as they sat together in Mark's living room, Lyra reached out and placed her hand on his. A flood of images filled his mind, visions of their homeworld, of vast cities made of light, of a society built on harmony and understanding. And then, he saw something else, a gift. When Lyra pulled her hand away, Mark felt different. Lighter, somehow. He looked at her, confused. "What did you do?" he asked. Lyra smiled, a soft, gentle expression that needed no translation. She touched his chest, just over his heart, and then pointed to the sky. It took Mark a moment to understand. They had given him something, a piece of their own essence, a gift of gratitude. It wasn't something he could see or touch, but he could feel it, a warmth that spread through him whenever he thought of them. A few days later, the sisters were gone. Mark woke up to find the couch empty, the blankets neatly folded. On the table was a small, glowing crystal, a final gift, perhaps, or a way to remember them. He never saw them again, but he often thought about the two alien sisters and the strange connection they had shared. And sometimes, on quiet nights when the stars were especially bright, he would look up at the sky and feel that warmth in his chest, a reminder that kindness could bridge even the widest gaps. Years passed, and Mark's life went on as usual. But he was different now, kinder, more patient, more aware of the world around him. He never told anyone about the sisters, knowing they wouldn't believe him. But he carried their gift with him, a quiet reminder that even in a vast, unknowable universe, small acts of compassion could change everything. And somewhere, out among the stars, Lyra and Nora carried a piece of him with them too.